Yeah, people, I know you can't see it, but you can hear it. Pissing rain out. Pissing the rain out pretty bad. Okay, people, so it's March 23rd. I told my friend I wasn't going to do any videos for a few days because I just got to focus on what I need to do in regards to this yard and, you know, the paperwork that I'm working on, right? But, you know, in light of people under crises, you know, namely in the United States of America, I think they're feeling it a little harder than we are in Canada. However, I'm noticing the politicians in Canada, the premiers of the different provinces, which there's 13 provinces and territories, right, except minus one. So they've all jumped on this global bandwagon to put the provinces or territories basically on lockdown, where they are now going to be fining people if they gather, some of them, Nova Scotia, starting with Nova Scotia, right, of all places, if you gather more than 5, and the police find out about it, they're going to fine these people $1,000. Like, this is turning into a money grab, okay? Literally. I mean, when you compare it to the numbers of deaths when it relates to fentanyl, this is a charade, okay? Because if the government was so concerned about the population, they would have dealt with fentanyl a long time ago, okay? They wouldn't be covering up illegal organ harvesting under the guise of, oh, puppies and kittens, donate the organs. They had an overdose, no prob. We got a place for those organs to go, and it will benefit 8 lives. Move along to the next person. Move along to the next person. Pat, pat on the back. See ya. Pat, pat on the back. See ya. As the numbers pile up in terms of the death toll that's related directly to fentanyl right across the continent, okay? Like, this is a charade. And so what's happening is, well, we all know, people are stocking up, right? Getting ready for doomsday. Can you hold on a minute, please? Getting ready for doomsday, locking themselves in, hoping that they won't get sick, thinking that they're being social by communicating on their cell phones, as the government is bringing in a stronger Wi-Fi, which is going to make people suffer from radiation sickness, which nobody is going to talk about because simply mainstream media doesn't report it, right? Because they're too busy playing lip service to, a hype over a virus that technically you can't, from my understanding, people, you can't cure viruses. You can't. There is no antibiotic that you can give to somebody for a virus. There is no drug that you can give to somebody for a virus, because viruses start and stop and they run their cycles. The only thing that you can give medications for is funguses and that type of thing to kill off the fungus, or bacteria. Right? But viruses, they run a course. Can you suppress viruses? I suppose you can, right? But at the end of the day, it's the virus and your immune system that's going to come into an equilibrium where you establish antibodies, okay? And in order to come into, to establish antibodies, you either come into the virus yourself, like me with German measles when I was a child. I have natural antibodies to German measles because I had them as a child. So if I come into contact with somebody with measles, it doesn't affect me, right? I don't need to be inoculated for it because my body built up an immune system for it. Because it's a virus, right? Disease. There's a difference between a disease, a virus, and a bacteria and a fungi. So anyway, in light of what's going on, though, this is, in my opinion, a military psyop, right, to coordinate one world government to control the population as we're being picked off one by one when we're not paying attention, okay? All right? And they're bringing in more authoritarian, don't breathe legislation with a already militarized police force, right, under that military-industrial complex fucking budget. Not Feed the People budget, but the military-industrial complex budget, which is in the billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. And because they have to roll out their drones and their robo-cops, right, to patrol city streets now because of a few people dying, even though last year there was probably 60,000 people who died from the flu that nobody talked about. Not to mention the 80,000 that died from fentanyl that everybody is convinced, you know, was an accident or a suicide. I don't know. So anyway, in the real world, for a lot of people that are like faced with this dilemma and, you know, didn't have the means, the space, the resources, or the knowledge to prepare for it in advance, right? Knowing that they wanted to, but, you know, just didn't quite get there yet. And now they're finding themselves with empty cupboards or, you know, having no access to diaper wipes and diapers and those types of things. And I don't mean empty cupboards, but, you know, basically where, you know, it's getting really hard to even get baby formula. And this is what's prompting me to do this video, because if I was in that situation, which some people are, have infants but no milk, and they can't find formulas, right? Because people have bought them already in the grocery store. What would be my alternative? And the only thing that I can think of right now would be to make my own. If you can't buy powder milk, if you can't buy evaporated milk, and if you can't buy fucking baby formula and all this other stuff, if you can't buy it because it's not there, and you have an infant that's hungry, well, what you gonna do, right? And just with the politics around this coronavirus, with everybody being on lockdown or going into like let me hoard food mode and buy everything up in the store so there's nothing left, as the stores themselves, some of them are shutting down, you know, it kind of puts you in a bad spot. So in that case, if I didn't have chickpeas at home, that would be the first thing that I would go out and look for, okay, if I had a baby in the house and it looked like, you know, it was going to stay on this track for a while in terms of the government being unpredictable. And, you know, I mean, like, you can hear, oh, it's only for 2 weeks, and then you can hear it's, oh, it's for, you know, it could be, you know, 3 months, and then it's up to 18 months, and, like, when does it start and stop? Right? And now that it's in place, when does it ease up and start up again? And when it starts up the second time, because they've already got the system in place, people, it's going to be that much smoother to hammer in those nails in the coffin, right? At the call of somebody up higher that doesn't have to worry about infant formula or even a bottle of milk for that matter. Right? Because right now, what I'm finding is it's a free-for-all. In other words, the government is coming out with their packages, which is mainly geared towards businesses, right? It's not going to trickle down much to the average Joe and Jane on fixed incomes, whether they're working or not. And if there's no available food, so what you do in that case, if you're with an infant and you're getting scared, because that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling that people are starting to get scared here. And I would be too. Because you don't want to be sitting up in your house with a hungry baby that's becoming malnutritious because the government has, you know, failed in providing you access to a reasonable food source. Right? And when grocery stores are shutting down, that's the government denying you access to a reasonable food source, as they're using a militarized police force to keep you locked up in your fucking houses, as they're charging you to do it. Because if they catch you in a group of 6, they're going to come after you and charge you $1,000 each. So think about it, people. It's nothing but a fucking money grab, and it's a means to bring in their, you know, electronics with the drones and the robo-cops and whatever else they're going to be freaking doing with whatever technology they're going to come out, their energy weapons, people, Okay? This is just a test run. So what you do anyway, you go out and, you know, look for the smaller, little, you know, food stores, right? Like out here, for example, because there's a lot of Punjabi people out here, we have a lot of smaller produce stores that sell in big bags of rice and beans, and because they cater to the Punjabi community, right? So therefore, a lot of this stuff comes in big shipments, you know, and that's, you know, that's their main stock. So, you know, find a place like that. It could be an African store, right? And that would be something I would go and, you know, because they get the rice and the flowers and those types of things that African people that come from real Africa, right? You know, and they have their specialty dishes that got them through every drought imaginable. You know, you can wander into a store like that, and chances are you're going to find probably some good flour that, you know, is maybe more nutritious than what you would find in a Walmart, say, with just standard white flour, right? Because, you know, people have dealt with droughts and famine and that type of thing before, right? So you might find, you know, bags of chickpeas there. And because chickpeas are the most easiest bean to digest for anybody, really, and is ideal for Amari, and it's palatable, you know, it's not a bad taste to it. It's mild, and you can mix it in with other things to change the taste, right? And then you know, you can change the consistency in terms of the paste or the pulp or whatever you want to call it. You can make it more like a formula, or you can make it more like a baby food, or just whatever, right? And then because of that, and because it's high in calcium and iron, and it's got the vitamin C to help for those two to absorb into the system, that's one of the main nutrients that a baby would need growing in a time of crises with limited to no food source. So go on the hunt for some chickpeas. And if you can't find them in the bigger stores, go to your drive, you know, until you find these smaller local specialty stores, I guess you can say, that, you know, cater to various ethnic groups. Because, you know, every group, right, in terms of ethnicity, you know, they have their main staples. And, you know, so rice, beans, chickpeas, you know, that type of thing, right? And, of course, get salt. Always have salt. Keep salt, because not only does salt provide the electrolytes to the body, but it's an antiseptic, okay, for a wound or to clean something or whatever it is. Just remember that. So when you're out and about, buy a little bit of extra salt for yourself. But go look for chickpeas, and then in that situation, if I had a baby and no milk in the house, and no means to get milk of any kind, people, I would boil them. That's what I would do. You know, not boil hard, but, you know, I'd rinse them, right? Start simmering them. I'd keep the liquid, right? You know, I'd use every bit of it, right? And you can even whip chickpeas. You can whip them and make a meringue with that, okay? That's how palatable and workable chickpea can be. So, and then, you know, I would strain it, mash it, right? Maybe run the water through it or something, or maybe reboil it. I don't know. I'd have to think about it, right? Because you don't want to lose any of the nutrients. And then, you know, depending on the age of the child, I would just adjust it to the consistency. So if it was like a 3-4 week old baby with no formula, well, what you going to feed the baby? Well, you can use the chickpea milk. That's what you can do. You can blend it. Okay, you boil it, and then after, you know, make sure there's enough water in there, right? And then you can strain it, take half the chickpeas, blend them, put them into the liquid, so all that seeps in. Maybe stew it again for another 10 minutes to bring it up, to, you know, just to infuse it, right? For maybe, you know, bring it to a boil and then turn it down, right? And then simmer it for a good 3 or 4 or 5 minutes just to infuse the chickpea into the liquid. And then I would take a cheesecloth, and if you can't find cheesecloths, again, just look around the house. In this case, you're not looking for a cotton with a pile. What you're looking for is a cotton that is a little more breathable so that the liquid can go through it, right? And then you have the pulp to make other things with, right? Including baby food. You'd have to incorporate other things along the way because, you know, the high iron content. But, you know, for a developing child, you need the calcium and the iron for the blood and the bones. And then, yeah, so that's what provoked me to do this video, because I wasn't going to do any videos. Now, it was pissing rain when I woke up this morning. It was like 5:30 in the morning. It was just pouring. You can hear it with the first little interlude of this introduction to this video. It stopped raining. It's kind of cold outside. I'm not feeling that great, but, you know, it would be expected, okay? So, more than likely, at some point, I am going to go outside and transplant that white oak and to give it a chance, right? And then there's a couple of things I'm going to move from here and get that garden bed opened up. So I'll move those, that's pretty easy, all the way around to the back, and I'll put them up alongside the big-ass ladder that I have. And I'll just put them there because when they do the porch and stuff like that, this year, those metal things might come in handy, right? Because they protect wood. That's what they're made for. So that's what they came off of, right? They protect the wood from getting weatherized too fast. And so I don't want to throw them out just yet. So I'll bring those to the back. But mainly, the only thing that I would do outside basically would be to transplant that white oak. Other than that, I am just going to focus on the yard. I'm going to try and have a good attitude about it. I've decided I'm not in the mood to be picking on the city too much about it, right? It was something I was going to do anyway, right? You know, so I'll probably end up thanking myself later on after it's done. I have asked my son to help me for 2 days, you know, at least, right? To just do the compost bed from compost bed to compost bed to compost bed, and because he's big and strong and fast, right? Get Andre out there, you know, with the, right? It should go smooth in terms of like 2 days of just basic compost repairs, and then that will use up a good half of the wood at least anyway, and then I'll be satisfied with that, right? And then I asked Tisha to spend a day outside with me, right, with her boyfriend. So hopefully that will happen. And then I'm going to ask Paige to come and help. And maybe Anissa, you know, just a couple of family friends to my girl, you know, to Tisha and whatnot, right? To come and help for 1 day over the next 26 days, right? So between that, you know, and then what's left, people? I mean, if the city want to be dickheads about it, well, then I'll get up back on that fucking bandwagon and I'll just rag on their ass, okay? You know, I'll do the best that I can. That's all I can do, right? And it looks worse than it really is, right? So I'm not going to stress about it. And as for my notice of claim, obviously I'm going to write this in, you know, because this is a problem. This is a political problem, you know, on top of other problems. But I'm definitely going to write this in, and you know, with the ongoing gang stalking that has led to the city of Surrey targeting the Chorney family for the 4th time since the medical kidnapping of Mr. Duncan. That's exactly what this is. This is the 4th time since John was medically kidnapped. So whether the city is doing it itself on purpose, or whether people are abusing you know, the system, I guess you can say. But you see, that's the thing, and I'll end it on this note. That's the way the system is being set up, though, people. And the more people, I don't want to say, but I do, right? The more people allow the government to take over their lives and limit them down to, oh my God, you know, you wake up 2 weeks later a month later, all of a sudden, you don't have baby formula, but you have a 3-week-old baby who's hungry. And you don't have diapers, and you don't have diaper wipes. But yet you have a government telling you to stay home and to not worry because a check is in the mail, as if it's going to solve any fucking problems when the minute you step out the door, you got the cops standing there with their fucking guns on you saying you're under arrest or pay the fine for congregating in a group of more than 6. Like, what the fuck shit is that? And then expect you to be socially polite on social media as your only form of communication, right? As you socially distance yourself. I mean, like, can't you hear what's going on? Like, it's so much fucking rhetoric, people, because these people that are doing this to you are going into your homes and they're picking off your family members one by one. Uncle John, Sierra, Andre, Amari, Shimei, think about it. And those are good times when you could go to the grocery store and buy groceries or diapers or whatever the hell it was that you needed. And people are just going for the okie dokie. Because they haven't lost an Uncle John yet. So how could they possibly know, right? All these old people who are dying from this flu, which is nothing new, people. Where do you think their assets are going? Up for grabs. Some of them are being taken legally. Some of them are being taken illegally, like Uncle John's assets were taken illegally. As the corporations who are receiving these paychecks from the government because they're so stressed out, are facilitating the illegal activities of stealing these old people's assets 10% of the time. That's all they need, people, 10% out of millions. They make billions out of 10% of millions. Well, not even millions. 10,000. If Uncle John got an inheritance, let's just say, of $500,000, and he was just the tip of the iceberg, right? How many Uncle Johns do you need to make $1 million? I can't think. 19? Right? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, minus 1, that's 19. You need 19 Uncle Johns to steal $500,000, and that's including Uncle John, which makes it 20, right? To make $1 million. To have that $1 million go into the corrupt government public union sector to sustain themselves so that they can catch you on the street with or without those drones and do anything they want with you, including making it so that you can't even get baby formula within less than 2 or 3 weeks. And then say, don't worry, we're on the way. I don't know. I think the federal government, if they're going to stay on this path down there in the United States of America and including Canada, I think they better start partnering up with fucking India and places like that. Fuck China. Just fuck China altogether, okay? They harvest organs illegally. They should have been blackballed from a long time ago, people. Any country that's illegally harvesting organs should be blackballed from this one world government, okay? And the ones that are producing the chickpeas and the beans and those kind of things outside of China, that's where your trade comes in. Because that's where it's going to end up going one day, people. It's going to be like the Depression where people go for their sack of flour, sack of fucking lard, block of cheese, and a bag of beans. And this is what they're preparing for. this really seems as to be what they're preparing for. And it's not even a crisis yet. But for some people, it is. So if you're finding yourself without baby formula, go on the hunt for chickpeas and go off into these smaller little ethnic specialty shops and those kind of places. You know, if they ran out but they got a shipment coming in, put your order in, okay? That's what you do, and you stock up and you'll get through it.